And yo, this is the live private session of Dr.Daks' first episode of Thirsty Thursday. Pedro Amos, your host. This is Miami's best graffiti guide presentation with the one and only Atlanta representative and all things Atlanta, AT-Alien Dr.Daks.
This is the story of you. What makes you special? Where you come from. This is one of the most exciting stories ever told because it's about you.
Today is the first Thirsty Thursday, but not the first Thirsty Thursday for Amos.
Oh no,
he does Thirsty Thursday every Thursday.
Every Thursday. I'm just taking it out in public now on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, and since quarantine, you've been calling me on Thirsty Thursday in this manner.
and you and I speak at least every other day for an hour or so we're pretty up on each other's stuff. What my whole thing was, trying to introduce this new programming of Thirsty Thursday and trying to get people that are relevant, people that are important, at least in my eyes and to the culture's eyes, and be able to talk shop with you and just kick it with you. But you were a layup and an easy pick, right? Because I mean, we do this all the time anyway, and so it'd be great just to have you on and share your stuff, your story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would just like to take the moment right now to be like, if any of you guys are going through it at home, you're lonely, you're going crazy, this is getting really hard for you, FaceTime Amos on Thursday.
I am
great quarantine company, let me tell you.
Always available too.
He's
always.
A whole lot of things, this guy Amos.
Hey, Big Dax, can we get a cheers though before we set this Thirsty Thursday off? I know you're a toast master. I know you like.
Oh yeah, let's make a toast to the show. Yeah, here's to the ones that are still here, and here's the ones that aren't. Let's drink all the White Claw while we're still here, because you can't drink it in heaven.
That's right. Cheers to that.
Yeah, I was looking you in your eyes. You might not be able to tell, but I was looking you in your eyes.
We are looking for a White Claw sponsorship. If anybody picked up on that, we are looking for White Claw to sponsor this event.
Yeah, and our second pick was cocaine. That was a Miami reference. I was kidding. Clearly, I was kidding, but that's a Miami reference.
No, but it very much is real. Probably easier to get than White Claw, to be honest.
Oh yeah, when you're in Miami, the Uber driver gives it to you at the airport. It says pinga.
So I was asking. I have Tammy. By the way, shout out Tammy, working hard for the Lab Miami. We're here in the Pedro Amos studio. We can
hear each other on either end of the camera because of Tammy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We have Ian over here doing the right stuff.
Sound also brought to you today by Tammy.
Ian's definitely in the house too, definitely putting this stuff together engineer-wise. And we have a live feed coming from the Miami's Best Graffiti Guide offices / Pedro Amos Studios. Again, this is Dr.Daks, the just Atlanta artist and all-around Atlanta representative. Originally, you've been there since
AT-Alien.
AT-Alien. You've been there for a long time, right, Dax?
Yes. I moved here from South Florida, of all places, in 1985. And I came from an area near Fort Myers in Naples, Florida. It's the Gulf Coast of Florida. It's a place where my heart lives. But I came to Atlanta in 84 to visit my brother and my father, and this place lit me up. And it was the first time I was exposed to graffiti as well. So this is the first time I learned about manifestation. I was like, I want to live up here. And my dad was like, that's probably not going to work out, and for many reasons. And my mom was like, you're not fucking moving anywhere. And then a year later, I ended up moving to Atlanta.
Yeah. And you were how old?
I was 8. I'm born late in September, later in the year. So like, even when I go to school, like I went to like kindergarten when I was 4. I was about, you turn 5 later. But I was just really young. So I moved here when I was 8, shortly about to turn 9, and I was in 4th grade. And I rode MARTA trains, which is our transit system here. And I saw graffiti, and then that's all I would do. I'd ride the train back and forth, look out both sides of the windows. And I studied this graffiti, and then at school, I started just asking every kid about it. And no one knew what the fuck it was. It just became like a hunt for like, just to even try to find out anything about it. It was just the most mysterious shit ever. So And I still kind of carry that, like, that childhood light about it. It's exciting, you know. It's a lot more than it was then, you know, especially in Atlanta. It was probably like coming to Atlanta in '85 was probably like being in Washington Heights or in Bronx or something in like 1968.
Really?
Or 1971 or something.
No kidding.
It just wasn't advanced, you know. Like if you look at like the history of graffiti when it comes to Miami, you had fucking style master shit going on down there. The understanding was complete. And in Atlanta, you had people who had no knowledge of anything. There was nothing to read. There was no one to talk to. You didn't grow up with writers. It's one of the rare places that the history hasn't been recorded, and there was just not a lot of knowledge to find. And the other people who were writing, there was no access to finding them. No one ever knew each other. It was a bunch of mysterious people, and even writers were mysterious to each other.
That's the way it was in general, right? I think just all around, the mystery, the elusiveness. One day you walk by this wall, there's nothing there. Next day you walk by, there's something there, and you're like, God damn, well, who did it? How'd they do it? When did they do it? What does it even say? You know, and that was my allure as a youngin'. I'm sure you also felt the same way. Do you remember? I know that, you know, recently I saw.
I think it's a little difference though between Miami and Atlanta. I think when you grew up, there were still motherfuckers hanging together and talking, and crews kind of knew each other were or something. They might even had beef, but they came across each other. They knew what each other. They knew. There was socializing going on in Atlanta. None of these writers, even to this day, have ever talked to each other. I've been getting in contact with them. They don't know who each other are, and I've never been able to track them down. It's taken me 33 years to track down this guy Rad from the United Kings. I just tracked this guy down. I've been talking to him on the phone till 7 a.m. But I've been looking for him since I was 9 years old. And like when Roger Gassman hit me up to participate in the history of freight train graffiti and the history of graffiti book, I just couldn't track anything down. I had pictures, I had memories, but there just wasn't any hard evidence, and there was no contact except for Raz 69, which is Ray Murray from Organized Noise. He was the Five Kings, but he was even after the United Kings. So our history is the most untold graffiti history in the world. Even Brazil and like places far away from America, the history's there. There's like news footage and all sorts of shit. Atlanta just had nothing, but it's all starting to kind of come together now, all these years later.
So I remember. So Ray Murray is part of the. He's one of the people, the founders of Organized Noise. Is that right?
He is 1/3 of Organized Noise, and Organized Noise is the production team. It's just Ray Murray, Sleepy Brown, and Ray Murray, Sleepy Brown, and Rico Wade. They are the producers that put together groups like Outkast, Goody Mob. They produced that whole bunch of catalog of stuff. Moving into the Dungeon family, started the Dungeon family. The Dungeon was Rico Wade's house. That created the Atlanta sound, you know, and really is what hip hop is today. You know, this is Mecca for the rap business industry. So, yeah, these guys are the most important, but he started off as a graffiti writer. They always say it was a good thing he quit graffiti.
Who, Ray?
If he hadn't. Yeah, what if he hadn't quit graffiti?
So Ray
what would have happened?
Wasn't, yeah,
music wouldn't be the way it is.
That's true. Ray wasn't one of the original, like the people. He's older than you, your age, more or less.
He's much, all those guys are a little bit older than me. He was writing in like 86, 87, 88 here in Atlanta.
Did you ever pick his brain about where he picked that up?
Even, you know, these guys, like, they're not like us. They don't nerd out and shit. I think they only cared about just kind of like painting and like maybe their buddies. But like when you ask them, they all seem to be like, nah, I don't remember those guys. Or like that attitude. And then like I talked to Rad and I was like, did you know Sparky's Eats? You know these guys? And they're like, man, no, not really, man. We didn't know anybody else. And if we ever saw any other graffiti, we'd always just do a piece over so that we were the only ones running on the MARTA line. And I was like, sick. That's right. I like that. They weren't going to let anybody else be graffiti writers in this place. It was only them. But interesting enough, I started putting together a timeline, and these guys started like I'm trying to get the oldest day, but as far as now, we know it goes back to 82. I don't want to tell too much because I'm trying to get these guys to make a book, but graffiti goes back further. It's proof now. They have archives. We have proof that it goes back to 82. And then from 82, he moved away in 86, and the United Kings kind of died out. And I think that's where the Five Kings and Ray Murray and these guys started taking over from there. And then they would kind of stop in another, you know, like, or Sparky Z and the Psycho Kings. And then it just kind of stopped for like a year or two. And then the 90s kind of emerged. And like guys like Save and Sir Leon kept going from the 80s into the 90s. But there was just different waves of graffiti, phases of graffiti in Atlanta. But really none of it recorded except for like, you know, 89, 90 and on.
None of it really documented.
We have it's coming out now finally though. At least the early 80s we have a solid, you know, thing going. I'm really excited to see what these guys do. I hope they make a book or a documentary. You know, there's no nothing. It's just me fantasizing at this point and trying to put the spark in their ass that this is important. You know,
it is.
You've seen that movie, the documentary? You seen the documentary Sugar Man?
Yeah,
it's
I have.
This guy
actually.
fucking he made all this music and stuff.
Yeah.
I thought he said he had killed himself or some shit. He's like Elvis in South Africa. I told them that like in Atlanta, even beyond graffiti, this is just so exciting because it's just Atlanta history. People, there's like the Atlanta child murders documentary on HBO about Wayne Williams. The serial killer, supposed serial killer that was here, and the terror that was going on racially and everything in Atlanta at the time. And these guys were doing graffiti in this time. And I was like, there's these documentaries are coming out on these places like East Lake Meadows and projects, and these untold stories of what the 80s was like in Atlanta is, I don't know why, but in 2020 people are starting to want to tap into that shit. But
because I think, like you're saying,
Wayne Williams documentary.
Yeah, there's a huge history. There's a lot of history that hasn't been.
There's a huge history, man. What's fucked up about it is that I have it all in my head, and so when you talk to people about it, it's not enough. When you're making books about history, it's got to be hard evidence. You can't just have a guy with his memories that was a kid. He's 8 years old and he's telling you what he remembers.
Sure.
It's just because when Roger and them did the book, I was just like, well, I remember this and this and this, and they're just like, well, we need stuff to put in the book, not just you can say that stuff, but it's not really interesting until you have the facts, hard copy facts. So that kind of thing happened, but it's going to change now. The history is about to be told. I think a lot of documentaries are already being made. Even Miami. Once again, you got Cocaine Cowboys. Also, I mean, people know all sorts of stories about Miami.
That Operation Odessa that I put you on to the other day, that Netflix doc.
No, I mean, even like I've got to go to Miami and talk to all these older writers. I've met Junior, and I know like KV, these guys, and just like there's a lot of black books. I've seen a lot of photographs, news clips, just all sorts of shit. Even the old Videograph had Miami guys and stuff. Miami's just always it's just a well-documented thing, and it's just endlessly interesting. But even going to the Museum of Graffiti and like shit just goes back deep, it's an early part of graffiti history as a whole. Miami's in there.
Yeah, I agree. So, I definitely agree with that. How was growing up in Atlanta, just in general? I mean, there was obviously graffiti peppered around Atlanta during the mid 80s, moving towards early 90s. That's when you kind of got on the scene, right? And kind of right at the end of the 80s, early 90s.
When I moved to Atlanta, I instantly started drawing and like stealing paint from my dad and like tagging and stuff. But I had more of like a punk rock aesthetic. I didn't know anything about it. I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't know how to even approach it. And I started like hunting for any information I could. But I was writing TR, and it was like chicken scratch, and I had X's for the like, periods for the T and the R. And I wrote that for a long time. But writing that is how I ended up being able to meet people, because that just. When you finally meet someone and you tell them that, and they recognize that you actually have done something, then it helps. But I was instantly told how bad I sucked every time. I remember that being a thing, like, you suck. And then even further, they would just be like, you need to stop writing that shit until you know how to write properly, And even the punk rockers were dissing me. I remember like the anti-heroes wrote over my shit, and I was like, damn. It was just a rough, writing your name in public was not easy when I came into the game here in Atlanta.
I wrote down here in my I wrote in my notes here, there was because I have notes, by the way. I wrote, there was a
how about that?
There was a post that I remember reposting that you had written about something about, practice for all the new writers, the advice you give, practice before you go bomb in public, and also learn how to fight. Right?
Is that what I said?
Yeah, there's something like that.
Did I say that?
Yeah. There was like four things, yeah.
I'm putting on some sunglasses, man.
Yes, sir.
It's goddamn bright.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was hilarious. No, but it's cool. And so on that note, who were you drawing inspiration from? Because I mean, so scarce, no one knew anyone. I mean, you're out there trying to hunt and gather information, and so who was it that you got put on with, or who schooled you? Because back then, what people don't realize, or they fail to realize, that we didn't have the internet. You couldn't just say, oh, I like this guy's style from Copenhagen, I like this guy's throw ups from New York. No, you had to have somebody that would put you on.
It was a step further here, because everybody I've ever talked to, they had the book fucking Subway Art and shit by like
sure.
84, 85. I didn't see that book. I was into graffiti already 6-7 years before I saw that book. And the other guys who I talked to, like Sir Leon, who started, I think, writing in like 84, 85, he told me that one day he turned on the TV and was looking for some shit, and he caught the very end of Beach Street.
Right.
And he just got a glimpse of graffiti, and he just instantly was like, yeah, that's it. I want to do that. He's from Bowen Homes, you know? But most people always say they saw subway art or something, you know? But for me, it was just seeing it off the MARTA line, which is kind of how graffiti existed. Some places had subways, you know, like the Bay Area had a lot of like track sides and like what they call yards, like these abandoned walls and shit. Atlanta really existed off of, you know, the MARTA line was immersing this town becoming a city. And the MARTA line, they started putting more and more stops. It didn't used to go that far. They kept putting more stops every couple of years. And as that was happening, I think the first graffiti writers like the United Kings were like, oh, this is how we're going to get seen. Everybody rides these trains. They're just building them. Yeah, and you know, it's already popping. That's what made Atlanta a city, was putting this MARTA line up. But for me, just riding that, I saw the graffiti and wanting to see it so bad, I started getting off the train and going to go look at it. I even took some pictures of it at that young of an age. I'd like jacked my dad's camera and took a couple pictures. When he got them developed, I was like, let me get them pictures out of there. And he was mad, you know, because you want to use that. You know, when you're taking film, you don't want anybody just blasting through your shots and shit you don't want, you know. But that's kind of how it all started. But then I would ride the MARTA train like every single day. Sometimes I would skip school, and I remember riding with markers on everything. I remember riding in the MARTA train. I don't even know how I knew this concept, but I would ride always on the inside. But I would just ride the train back and forth all day. There's north and west, north, south, east and west. So I would ride from one end to another, looking out one side, and then ride back on the other side, and then go back to 5 Points and look at it again. I was just like, almost like you'd read a book a couple times. I would just ride MARTA and kept wanting to get a look at this shit. And a lot of the places were hard to get to in Atlanta. Atlanta was really rough. As a majority of the town was a lot of rough areas, especially off the MARTA stations. And MARTA stations can be kind of like Greyhound stations a little bit too, you know, outside. So I remember getting my, you know, I'm not gonna get into too many crazy stories, but you know, fucked up shit would happen when I would try to go look at this graffiti up close. It didn't happen a lot.
Yeah,
I'll just tell you that. I would take my ass back on MARTA and get the fuck out of some of these places, you know. So I started realizing that graffiti was even crazier. So I was like, how are these motherfuckers taking all this time to paint this shit with spray paint characters and all this color and style and do it in these rough places? They must be rough dudes, you know.
For sure.
And when you meet them, they were always rough. But that was Atlanta. Atlanta was a creepy town back then. You know, it was a lot of fucking just like a big tenderloin at one point, or like, you know, like bathhouses and fucking, you know, porn shops and shit, places that sell dildos. It was just a lot of fuck shit. A lot of gross shit and pedophilia, and it was seedy.
Yeah,
just in a lot of ways, you know. Yeah, and then it's not so much like that now. Chester Bridge was like the last of those streets where you see like lingerie modeling and, you know, like just all these fucking loopholes for prostitution and seedy sex, you know.
How was the
on, I guess, or anything?
Yeah,
you know?
How was the that falls in line with the seedy neighborhoods. How was that correlation between the graffiti and the kind of creatives and the artistics? Were there, like, you know, how the jocks and the goth kids and the druggy kids and the gang kids, was it kind of clustered up like that, or was it more of a free for all individual?
Very separated. It was separated. You know, there was always neighborhoods for shit. When I first moved to Atlanta, Pershing Point, which is like the cross between Midtown and Buckhead, which is very fancy now. But there was like abandoned, like, you know, 10-story apartment buildings, squatting going on, heroin. You know, punk rockers would always cluster there. Little 5 Points had punks and skinheads, a little bit of Virginia Highlands. For people who don't know, these areas are like just like outdoor malls and shit now, just like everywhere else, kind of. And they're still a little hip, but back in the day, they were boarded up. And then there was neighborhoods of punks and skinheads, and then there was just trap neighborhoods. I feel like the hip hoppy kids and the black kids stayed in their neighborhoods. People really didn't venture out a lot. And I wasn't from here, and we moved around a good bit. I didn't like live in the projects, or my dad didn't own a house, so I was never just like, I'm zone 6, you know. I lived in different places, and I found a lot of pride in being a part of these places. And I always considered myself like all city, even before the graffiti notion of all city. I felt like I was all city because I was always kind of welcome everywhere. I would always be invited to it somewhere, or we would move somewhere. So it was just like, I don't know. I had an ability of getting in everywhere.
Why do you think that is?
Town, black sides.
Why do you think? I've always thought that about you.
A big part of me. I think for me, you know, I grew up in South Florida, and it's just a different type of environment there. My mother is very open-minded. She's married to a Puerto Rican man. They had black friends. I went to school, and I remember everybody was not really, you know, people were friendly to each other, but they wouldn't really be friends. But I was just always wanting to be friends with everybody. And then when I got to Atlanta, I was just so happy to be here, and everybody had like style and cool shoes, and like I didn't know what that was. It just didn't exist where we lived. And I came here, and culture was just fucking abundant. So I didn't even know it was considered. I didn't even know what culture was. I just knew there was a lot going on, and it was lighting me up. So moving here, I just was cool with everybody, or try to be, and through that, I think I just wasn't separate. I was never a part of a neighborhood. I never felt like oh, you're just white, or you're not black, so you can't hang out here. I was just like, I want to fuck with all y'all. I just had a love for fucking socializing and people.
That's interesting, but a lot of people have that same intention, and they're like, nah, dude, you can't fuck with us because you're white, or because you're not about what we're about, or you don't trap, or you don't do this, or you haven't proved yourself, or something like that. But you've always had this unique ability to get in, and you fit in everywhere, is what I'm saying.
I think having my father's an artist. My stepfather, he was a Latin king. He is a Latin king. I grew up around a lot of different types of people. Like really thugged out poor people. I've been around artsy shit, and I think I had the ability to articulate myself in any background, anything that was going on. I was able just to my brother was really into hip hop. I remember going to school, and white kids and black kids didn't hang out, but I fucking had a fucking tape, a Walkman or something, and the black kid was like, what the fuck are you listening to? And I was like, oh, I got like the Slick Rick tape my brother lent me, and they were like, oh, you like Slick Rick, like music, and also I think always talking about graffiti, and even getting to like finding people who knew what it was, or like knew an older brother that knew one of the writers or whatever. I think that kind of got me into like being, I don't know, I think I was just hip enough, or I knew enough about some street shit to like go hang out in the streets.
Just the right amount of hip.
Enough to fucking, yeah, and also articulate enough to not scare the shit out of a white kid,
That's true.
I was white enough to not scare white people.
Yeah, you got a strong vocabulary there, Dax.
Yeah,
So,
I do.
I always thought that.
I just, I have the gift of gabber, I think I got a lot of that just from fucking, I go to Cleveland during the summer, so Cleveland was never exciting to me. It was like fucking Gotham City. I don't know why. Atlanta was just fucking crunk. When I moved here, Freaknik had already started kind of going on. There was just this party spirit about this place. This place is crunk. Even before crunk was crunk, it's always been crunk. It's a crunk motherfucker, And I came here right in the mix of all that shit. And I was at the right age. By the time Freaknik really took off, I was fucking 17, 18 years old. We were riding around in old schools and shit, so like that's just exciting shit. I don't know if anybody from any other city can even understand what this was going on, where all these people, it was like Black Spring Break times 1,000, and
well, remember, then it moved down here, right?
Yeah. I mean, Miami's always, Miami's another city. It's just fucking crunk, It's like, I don't think back in the early 80s, unless you were in New York, LA, or Miami, or even Atlanta, you weren't experiencing these like hip hop park parties and block party type vibes. I don't think if you're from fucking like Salt Lake City, you don't know what that is. Probably still don't.
No, definitely not. Definitely not Salt Lake City. But I remember that.
You know what I learned too? I learned that everybody didn't fuck with each other because they maybe taught that shit too. It wasn't actually that it was hard. It wasn't like it was like I had a special fucking skill to be able to talk to everybody. I just did it. And I think other people never did it. I think that's all. The only thing I really did was just do it, and it was not hard. You just no matter where you go, you got to break the ice with some people. But once they start talking, you realize you're not a cop or some shit. It's on, and I think it was as easy as that. And people, even Andre 3000, I remember, used to bug on me, and like Sleepy Brown. They just be like, man, how do you get to hang out everywhere? Like you're the only motherfucker who can do that. And it's like it's just because that's the mindset. Their mindset was like, you just don't go to other motherfuckers' neighborhoods. You don't skip school and go by people's schools. I remember people skipping school and being near our school and getting their ass whooped.
Right.
You don't be coming around our school, man. Like,
but that's that's a very interesting, and I've always thought this. I think we've discussed it at some point, but I've always thought the fact that, you can float around all these different pockets and be accepted, in all of these different spots. And I think, listen, we've hung out in mansions in Miami Beach. We've gone to Overtown together. I saw you at the Source Awards. That was random.
Yeah.
Like just all these.
Tell that fucking story.
You tell that story. It was a great day though. That was an incredible day.
Yeah, we did. No, we've been able to fucking be in some interesting places all the way from scary to fucking, exclusive.
Yeah, very much
We've been to
so.
some exclusive shit where everybody ain't welcome, you know.
No, it's the Star
we've
Island
had that ability. I think it's not even an ability. You should even call it, because people like, oh man, I wish I could do that, or like you had this ability to be able to. It's like you got to just kind of just go do it. I think anybody can do it. I think people live in fear, especially even socially. They'll be like, oh, you can't hang out with those people because whatever. But it's like, is that really real? Is there really this invisible wall around this scene or this business shit or whatever? Even entering the art scene and the gallery scene. Sure. People are like, I don't know if the art world's gonna take you in so well, and like all this doubt. And I've been accepted in well, wearing tank tops, yeah. I fucking go, I've had to put on suit jackets over my tank tops to go eat dinner with people. And like, I don't know. I just think that I just went and I just gave, I'm not scared. And if I get turned down, I understand. I'm always like, oh, I get it. I wouldn't let me in here either, maybe, but I tried. And a lot of times I don't get turned down very often. I just don't get turned down. And if I do get turned down, I try to I like to be invited to shit. I don't like to be the person trying to sneak into shit or beg or like, hey, do you know the person? I'm like, if I'm not invited, man, I'm just not ready to be there.
Sure.
But, I feel like if you make some noise, whether it be with, music, sports, drug dealing, fucking art, whatever, just do what you're going to do and do it really big and well. And for some reason, it doesn't matter what you do. If you're doing something well, then other people who are doing stuff well seem to want to have you around. And it comes down to that too a little bit. You can't just be a stinky loser.
Yeah,
even though I stink right now.
It's definitely a lot of mindset, right? How you perceive, how you approach, how you attack things. I always tell my son definitely like that. There's nothing to it but to do it, right? Go ahead and do it. Yeah, you might not be, great at it the first time. Yeah, you might not be a professional. Yeah, you didn't have this or that, but go ahead and take the first step towards accomplishing that goal or doing that thing or doing that podcast or doing that piece or doing, whatever, starting that business or whatever the case may be. It's an interesting kind of space where
hesitation will kill you.
That's correct. And the whole mindset of people that are talking, oh, I don't have this amount of money, I can't start this yet. I don't have this kind of talent, I can't start this yet, or something like that. But I mean, it's really about taking the initial steps to move forward. And I think you do that.
Yeah, I think we learned that in graffiti. I've learned it through graffiti. I learned it through hustling and slinging dope and shit. You got to have a go for it ass attitude. And it goes back to, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. I learned it through taking pictures of things I'm not supposed to be taking pictures of. I'm like, I'm just going to take it and see what happens, dude, and deal with it. Like doing graffiti, you don't have permission to do that shit. Are you going to so you're not going to do it? You'll never be a graffiti writer if you have that attitude. And then people tell you, oh, well, look at you, the art world is going to be crazy. And then, I go and do shows at Mason Fine Art and fucking, I break that ice. And people are there to see me anyway, so that's an icebreaker in one. And they're blown away that you can, they have this perception of you and, everything's perspective and perception. So I don't limit myself. And, insecurity will make you be like, oh, I'm not worthy of hanging around these people or some shit or being in this world or what I do is not good enough for something. And I like what I do and I'm unapologetic about it and it works. And if nobody likes it, they don't have to, they can fuck off,
Hey, speaking of that, so did you ever venture off and try and do music? Did you ever?
No, I never did music, but I tried to. I've led people in good ways. I knew Future. Future used to hustle with me and shit. And he's Rico Waite's cousin, but nobody cared. Even Rico kinda. And they went. It's just like graffiti or anything else. When he came around, he's a star, and I knew it. I think they knew it, but they're like, nah, motherfucker, nobody just gets to jump up in here, hang around 10 years, then you can record a song with us. That's how Future came up. And then I was trying to make you a fucking Aladdin sensation at one time.
Chill.
What would have happened if Amos would have just left this whole graffiti Wynwood bullshit and fucking you wouldn't be doing this with me right now.
I probably still would be though. I probably still would be.
You'd be on TMZ or some shit. You'd be on TMZ. I swear to God, we wouldn't be seeing Amos here. We'd be seeing him on TMZ.
Your thought was to take any American pop song and just convert it into Spanish. And have me sing
especially
it.
Like 80s,
that was
like 80s plan. Pop songs, like a movie soundtrack 80s, like what's love got to do with what the heat of the moment, the caliente de momento.
Le caliente de momento. Yes.
Yeah. I had a vision.
You did. Not my vision, but you had a vision. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's go to this. I throw stuff out there, it gets thrown back constantly, man. Everything ricochets. I consider like being creative minded, trying to go after things that are there's no guidelines, there's no handbook, no instruction manual, and you go into most shit doesn't work out, man. And but it does work out sometimes is the thing.
Something stick though, yeah.
You know, if you get discouraged by things not working out and you try less things, man, you're gonna get. If you actually do ever get anything, it's going to be a lot less. Because I say I got a 1 in 100 right now is about my average for shit I throw out there, dead ass serious throw out there, and they get thrown back. And I stopped getting discouraged. I was just like, you know, everything you can't win them all, and you don't win them all. So every once in a while, I get something, I get one, and that shit is magic. It's magic. We could have made magic together.
It's that stick to itness, though, right?
No, but I don't, you know, like, even, you know, I'm here right now, you know, I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you because you didn't fucking, you know, am I mad at you because I don't have a Lamborghini sometimes, you know?
Not me, man. Not me. That was a plan. That was a plan, but not a plan for me.
I was going to be on the private jet going to fucking Ibiza to perform with you, you know? That didn't happen. I had this, you know, I was manifesting that shit, you know, but everybody's got to be on the page, the same page. You weren't with it. You just weren't with it.
I was not.
You decided to become a doctor on Telemundo or something.
I did. I was, and I did. Hey, but listen.
You got on Telemundo instead.
That goes to just the thought of big picture, right? I mean, just dream big, do big, you know, or don't do it at all. That mentality, and I think that's really what's you know, paved the way for you. I think in a lot of sense, the way that you've been able to maneuver is because of that big picture mentality. And I think the people that you know are successful, really, that's one common trait that they all have, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, even beyond dreaming big, like, I mean, my ideas are so big that they're not even realistic. But I try to pin down what's kind of like like trying to push the limit, but like, let me see how much I could even just pull off, you know? And a lot of people are just like, yo, chill, you know, just chill on that shit. But every once in a while, someone's like, oh, man, yeah, let's, like I can name the brand. I just dealt with a huge brand, and when I met them one time, I just threw out there that I should do a limited edition with them. And they were like, oh, no, this brand has never changed and never will change its fucking branding exactly to the T from when they started over 50 years ago.
You can't name that brand. Oh. You can't name that brand, right?
I can't name the brand.
Okay, but it's a classic brand. Hey, Dax, check this out. We have 4 minutes to jump on to live.
Anyway,
to jump on live.
The brand though. Okay.
So what?
Real quick with the brand though. They came back years later, and I'm doing it. So you'll see what that is later. But I threw it out there. It got thrown back, but then they came back anyway. So let's go live.
We are live now.
And we're back.
What's up, yo?
This is Thirsty Thursday, brought to you by Miami's best graffiti guy. Dax and I are coming in hot. Yeah, so as I said, we've been talking with Dr.Daks.
Today's live is brought to you by White Claw.
Thirsty Thursday, sponsored by White Claw and Miami's best graffiti guide. Talking all things graffiti, all things art, all things creative. Dax, one of the things that I love about you is
thanks for overnighting these.
Yeah, for sure. My pleasure. One thing that I really admire, that I love about you, is the fact that you've been able to float around, and that was a real kind of key point of our earlier conversation prior to this going live. How much of that, you floating around and your acceptability in all these different circles, has art attributed to it, or has art provided the opportunity for you to float around so much?
Well, in my younger days, it didn't help at all. Telling girls or people that you did graffiti was really like, it was shamed. It was a shameful thing. It was almost like saying like I smoke crack. That's what I do.
Right.
You know, it was not cool. And even in the punk rock scene, which is like a bunch of people who are, you know, underdog type people, they weren't even feeling it. So, but then when I traveled, it would be like so cool to people. Atlanta was just a little different. But as I got older, as graffiti and street art and things started becoming accepted, I don't know. I feel like it was a blessing. It felt really good because I'm somebody, you know, I'm sensitive, and I don't like feeling unaccepted. I like being accepted. I think that's why I started doing graffiti, is because I was looking for some attention. I didn't get a lot of it growing up that I probably should have, and I started, you know, taking it through graffiti. I started getting attention, whether it be negative or positive. But as everything got popular, it served me well. It's been a blessing, you know. I'm allowed to go to places that a lot of people don't feel accepted, you know, and people even doubt that I would ever be able to be accepted in some of these places or enter these realms. But you know, I broke down these barriers, these invisible barriers.
You know, I love the citizenship that you have, the never expiring visa that you have down here in Miami. The love you get down here is so real. This is pretty much a second home for you, man. When did you and I? Yeah, you keep saying that, but I advising against it. You and I.
I'm too Atlanta to move there.
You and I met back in 1999.
96.
You always say 96, but I'm certain it's 99.
Well, 99 is still the 90s.
It's still the 90s. It's definitely the 90s.
You're in the right era. Yeah.
We met through a mutual friend of ours, Baser. Shout out to Baser FS. But one of the things.
Look! I got a Baser goddamn MacLeod shirt on right now.
Right on time. That's right on time.
Loyalty is royalty.
Baser is a very dear friend of both of ours. He put us both on, and you came down here and you were straight hustling at the time. That's what your vibe was. You were out here. I think it was Winter Music Conference or something like that, and you were moving around. And this was 21 years ago.
I was slanging X pills.
Yeah, that's what it was.
There's a statute of limitations on these things, so we can talk about that. and so
unless
White Claw, unless it breaks the White Claw contract, I apologize.
Thank you, White Claw sponsored.
If I broke the contract that we have with White Claw today,
no, we're fine. We're fine. They already shipped the claw.
What about Pringles? Can we get a Pringles sponsorship though?
Hey, one of the things that you were doing out here was moving around, but prior to that, you had been coming down here to Miami before '99.
Yeah, I came to Miami in the '80s with my mother, especially when hurricane season would come attack the Gulf Coast. I lived in Naples, Florida, around the time, and we would drive to Miami, which is the East Coast. It would be safe, and Miami was really exciting. I remember seeing South Beach when it was abandoned and stuff. It was really cheap to stay over there.
Well, South Beach, people forget South Beach wasn't what it is today. It was pretty.
Not the South Beach I showed up to. I think I showed up to that beach in '82, '83, and it was abandoned. You know, I remember my father had really cool pictures of it actually. But yeah, I started going to Miami then. But on my own, I went down actually to pick up what Miami does best, some of that, and I went with some older punk rock guys and a writer named Sess, which at the time was really bad on heroin. You know, we drove in a Volkswagen van down there with a hole cut in the floor in case we had to drop it out the floor. And I met up with Baser, and I met Baser through trading photos through this guy SB. But I was trading photos with Baser, and he had sent a pack of photos back. He said it wasn't an equal trade, and I was like, this dude's a fucking cocksucker, man. And,
right.
And anyway, from there, I was like, I'm gonna go down there and figure out who this guy was, and that's why SB wanted us to meet. He said, you guys are so much alike. You're so cocky and shit, you know. And I went down there and we met, and me and Baser became like best friends.
Hit it off.
I was best man in his wedding.
I was there.
Yeah, I wore a tuxedo. But yeah, that was dope. But anyway, that's the type of things graffiti has brought me, and then that's how long I go back into Miami. That was 1994, and I painted freight trains down there with Baser when freight trains were sitting around still, maybe even near Wynwood and shit. I believe it might have even painted into freight trains in Wynwood or some shit.
There were some layups, but you know, yeah.
I don't remember where it was. I had no idea.
Yeah,
I was painting freight trains during the day in the heart of Miami, though, which you don't hear about that too much no more.
And your relationship with Miami, and just in terms of like maybe even the big events, like we alluded to in the earlier segment, that again will be edited and put together and put on all the platforms that we had earlier about.
Are you on OnlyFans?
Huh?
Is it on OnlyFans?
It's not. It's for the public. We're not going to be exclusive.
We'll talk later. I got a new big idea for OnlyFans with you, though. I got this OnlyFans idea.
Is that right?
Yeah, with you.
Is this? Well, maybe we take that offline.
But this recording that we did today will be on all things. Friendster,
on all things.
MySpace.
On all things. Hey, your relationship with Miami, and again, the big events like we alluded to earlier, the Source Awards, Art Basel, and events like that. Yo, do you remember
JT Money?
Huh? JT. That's right.
Hi, dude.
Yep.
I was in
Yep.
JT Money's Hit 'em High, Hit 'em Low video. So I was tied into Miami even musically, in the musical side of things there. I was we were hanging out with Trick Daddy back when Dro in the Wind with CeeLo, and we all went down there. We were in that video. Yeah. That was a good time. So I've just been getting like pulled into Miami through like the grace of God for a long time.
It is attractive. It is an attractive and luring city.
It is attractive to me because it pulls me in. I've ended up in Miami most of the times without even putting thought or effort into it. There's just a gravitational pull I have with that place.
And all of a sudden, you end up at Rhett's house.
I'm actually an official Cuban. I'm a member of the Chico mob.
The Chico scam, Chico mob.
The Flagler fucking fight DAWs and stuff, you know? Hey,
how about, listen, Dax,
you've been to South Beach? You've been to Flagler?
Hey,
shout out to Flagler. Shout out to Flagler.
I was thinking about this prior to our talk today. I don't remember the year, but I know you will. With that the Occupy Wall Street people. Do you remember the Occupy?
No, Occupy Miami.
It was Occupy Wall Street, and they were in Miami.
The Occupy movement. The Occupy movement. Right? Yeah. Well, there's a great story written by the Miami New Times. New Times. They wrote a great story. They contacted me and did a whole story about it. But I went down to Art Basel, and I was funded by Frank 151 magazine to do a recap video. And as I was down there, I painted an Oiler mural that I had did the year before, but I had to redo it because someone dissed it. I was doing that Oiler portrait. And shout out to everybody who was there today, all them EP kids, to June and Dade Ware, and you. That was an epic thing. But anyway, I fucking had painted that for 3 days, and Art Basel was going on, and I was missing it. And I was like, I had FOMO real bad, fear of missing out. And I finally got out. I remember it was Thursday night, and Art Basel already been going on how it does the week before Art Basel, the pre-Basel. And I get out, and I've just showered, shaved. And I get out, and I remember I had to film this this recap. So I instantly started filming, and the streets are buck wild in the heart of Wynwood. And there's this was still a Puerto Rican neighborhood at this point. I think it was 2011, right?
I feel like it
13 or 11.
Yeah, I feel like it might have been before that, honestly. And we were walking down.
You can look it up online.
We were walking down 24th Street, by where Panther Coffee is.
Yeah, and it was wild. Art Basel was going on. I think it was like, I don't know, it seemed like spring break type of Freaknik type of vibe. I was loving it. I'm filming, and I see these kids throwing cones, and a kid jumps up on a flatbed, and I'm filming, and I'm provoking. I'm like, yeah, like go crazy. And then the Occupy people are protesting. It's just a lot of different energies, like all colliding, almost like when hot air and cold air hits, and it's a hurricane. It was like a human hurricane going on out there. And then the police just came in like a bunch of fucking like crooked ass fucking big city type cops came in, and they start beating the shit out of this Puerto Rican kid, and people start throwing stuff at the cops, and then all the Occupy people come start yelling, and I'm filming, and I get all up in the scene, and the Occupy people are like, we're filming you motherfuckers, and then the Puerto Ricans start yelling and shit, and they grab the Puerto Rican kid that they beat up and me, and they slammed us on the car.
Yeah.
Because there's only like 4 cops. There's like 300 plus people screaming and four cops, and I just got stuck in that mix. And at first I was arrested for being Puerto Rican, which I'm not. And then as they learned I was not Puerto Rican, then I was now arrested for being Occupy, which I was not.
Right.
And then I experienced terrible racism and all sorts of stuff that day. And
the name of the charge that you finally got was fucking awesome, though.
Oh yeah, I got inciting a riot, fleeing.
Incite the riot.
I got a bunch of charges. I was felonied up, and also this sucked for me because I'd been through a third indictment, and it went on for almost 3 years. This indictment, and I finally got my papers stamped and all this stuff. I was a free man. I got a null prost, which means I'm not prosecuted, but it's still there. So this is my first, like, I'm free, Art Basel, you know, and I get down there and I'm arrested. And I get inciting a riot, which was the biggest charge and a hard one to fight at that. And then they were so concerned with my camera footage that they didn't take my iPhone. And iPhones were still pretty new back then. I don't think they realized the capability of this thing they left in my pocket.
Yeah.
And Instagram had just came out. So I was Instagramming, and when I would post from Instagram, it would go to my Facebook and my Twitter. So the shit went out.
Ignored this account.
Everything, yeah. I was blogging. I was fucking blogging from inside of there, and telling people that the shit's dead wrong. And Big Boy from Outkast sees this post, and he's going down because he got off of a ship down there months prior. He got caught with like an X pill and some Viagra or some shit.
I remember.
Anyway, I got no bond. I remember they read off all my charges that have been expunged and dropped. That day in Miami, when you talk to the judge, you talk to a TV screen. You don't actually talk to a judge. So I'm talking to a TV screen. Shit seems like some sort of scary Blade Runner movie at this point. And I'm talking to the screen, and he just read off all my charges from when I was 18 and on. And was like, unfortunately, your past has come back to haunt you today. And I said, well, for whatever it's worth, all that stuff has been dropped. I was proven innocent. He said, like I said, your past has come back to haunt you today. No bond. I get 21 days till my next court date, and I'm getting dressed out, and people are being mad racist. So I know I'm about to get my ass whipped soon, or have to fight for my life almost. It's dead ass like that. And it's 34 degrees or something in there. And they took my jacket from me, and I'm in a tank top. I'm in a tank top like this with my arms in it. That's how I'm living. And next thing you know, they called my name. Boom, getting released. And I was like, what? I was like, I don't even have a bond. They go, well, you got one now.
Right.
Fucking Big Boy and my lawyer that I introduced into, Big Daniel Kane, we just happened to be down there in the next courtroom when we had court at the same time. When the courts let up, they went with their lawyers and Daniel Kane and his lawyer friends and Big Boy and talked to my judge and got me out on a signature bond.
Shout out to Daniel Kane.
Shout out to Daniel Kane. And then right after that, the Miami New Times hit me up like, we got to fucking make a story about this. This is huge.
I remember that day so vividly, just walking, when all that popped off, the kid jumped on the car, I walked towards the sidewalk, and you walked towards the kid.
This is back when Twitter was big, and I was on Instagram only when you had to have an iPhone, and not everybody had iPhones, I remember, kind of. And Twitter, I just became Twitter famous, I remember, at that time. I had like 600 followers, and I got like 2,000 followers from that whole, like, insane incident. It was ridiculous, though, man. Like, Miami's fucking bullshit with the cops. They're assholes.
That's a little bit
They're like
sketchy.
gangbangers. They were gangbangers.
Yeah. Yeah.
No bullshit. They were, the cop was yelling, fuck Winwood, and was yelling some shit about Zoe and stuff, and I was like, you're a cop and you're yelling Zoe?
Right.
How does that work?
Yeah. It's very much.
So anyway, I have never figured Miami all the way out, but there's still some things. There's still some things to figure out here.
Well, listen, that was 12 years ago. Feels like 08 or something.
Man, shout out to White Claw.
Shout out to White Claw. Shout out to Pringles as well.
Yeah, but anyway, that was a moment in life. You know, I just got out of trouble and got right back into it. So I came home I came home pretty disappointed on the whole thing, and it cost a lot of money to get out of that shit. So just a note to kids in your Art Basel, be careful.
Yes, warning to all kids coming to Art Basel. This is not a free-for-all. Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Not to get on the sad side of
does.
things, but kids have even died catching tags at fucking Art Basel.
That's true too.
Can you tell us about that law changing about how you can't just chase people in cars during Art Basel?
Yeah.
Did the law change after that?
I don't know if the law changed, but I mean, I'm pretty sure that's a law just in general.
Kind of like bike life, though. It was like a no change.
You don't stop a potential a perpetrator by hitting them with your car. I think that's just general, just knowledge. You don't do that, and
you don't run people over your car.
Yeah, and obviously that was a real blemish on the city when that happened. That was not.
Yeah, I mean, I love Miami, man. Like, let me tell you, Miami's got the best and the best and the worst of the worst shit. Like, I've done my most fun, memorable moments are in Miami, and then I've had some really ugly things go down in Miami. Even walking through Overtown with Stay High 149 was a bad memory.
Yeah. I know that story. I tell people all the time, you can make this whatever you want. I mean, you could wake up at 6 a.m. and go to yoga, or you can just be coming out of 11 at 8 a.m.
You can walk in and eat a lobster on South Beach and wake up butt naked on your stomach in Overtown.
That's right. Right. ass up in a ditch.
Yeah. Let's go camping.
No, that's the truth. So listen, so your relationship with Miami is a very interesting one. I've always thought so, and I think that's hilarious. All the experiences you've had in here, because quite frankly, you've had just such over 2 decades of in and out of here for sure, and exploring this city and all that stuff. In terms of your career, though, how do you think, if anything, which in my opinion it has? I mean, listen, I went to your show with Norm, rest in peace, Norm, MSK. Yes. I went to your show here with Norm and Kale too from K2S. Yep. That was some years ago. That was a kind of group show that y'all had at Houseman Gallery. Shout out Federico. I remember you guys doing that shit. I remember you having other little expositions as well down here. Just the influx of art and influence and different things that happen down here is really dope as well. How has this, if anything, helped you as an artist?
Well, Miami was presenting opportunities too to I was doing things to make money here, selling canvases here and there, like graffiti stuff. But Miami kind of opened up some doors for me, especially doing like that show with Norm. But even before that, I painted like a really high-end furniture store in Wynwood one year through DZ. That I got that job. But just doing those jobs and the people who had pulled up and the relationships I met, besides dope dealing and music industry shit that I was obviously tapped into, to be able to go to Miami was like really kind of like the make or break for me if I could even tap into this at all. But it was, I wouldn't say it's easy because there's a lot of effort that went into being there and doing the right things. But in just being present in Miami, I had a lot of work come from it, directly from Miami. And then even as social media has been blowing up, being at Art Basel's and coming home, it seemed like work was waiting on me here because they were like, oh shit. It was kind of like, it kind of like put the stamp on the passport in some ways too,
Yeah, for sure.
I think my talent showed what it did, but I think to be able to actually work with me or, a lot of these preconceived notions that I'm too wild or irresponsible changed a little bit when I started getting fucked with in Miami. And Miami kind of, like I said, just stamped that passport and allowed me to be able to work in many other places because I was able to show and prove. And most people show up to Art Basel now, but at one point or another, it's like if you showed up to Art Basel and did something and painted a wall, that was showing how established you were.
You're on the radar.
I'm on the radar.
Yeah.
To even be able to be accepted in a lot of these circles in Miami for Art Basel, whether it be fine art or even graffiti stuff, everything's dead serious, or at least it was. There was no playing around going on at Art Basel. And I started showing up in 2006. It was the first one I did with Stay High, Futura, and Sky had set up the show on in that high rise.
Right,
so I had my first.
Sky.
I had like my first Art Basel experience with Stay High and Futura. Doing a show. That shit opened up a lot of doors. Even people like Futura know who I am because of that.
That's dope.
That was good.
And he's definitely, a pioneer in every regard. I mean, you talk about Futura, for example, and he's, known for pioneering a lot of the subway cars and stuff in New York. But that just goes, to show how he's established himself for doing, the U.S. Men's World Cup jerseys.
I see Carlos Mayer up on here.
What's up, Mayer?
What up? I see everybody up on here. I'm going to acknowledge everybody real quick. All right, my bad.
That's cool.
What's up, everybody?
Now, moving forward though with your art, I mean, I know that you took a real serious turn in terms of a lifestyle, and so opening your mind, expanding new horizons, things like that. And I wonder how impactful, because I know it was, or influential, that kind of knowledge of self and inner retrospective,
I think I see where you're going with it,
Yeah, I want to know how that affected
my lifestyle change was dramatic. I had a dramatic lifestyle change. I spent years being, really wild. I sold dope. I did graffiti. These are very rebellious sports. And, you can't play these sports unless you're willing to break the law. And I had a mentality of just being like a pirate. And at some point or another, I got too involved in getting high, straight up. And I think the mixture of getting high and the freedom of having this large amount of time and money, it's a recipe for disaster, and as I've gotten into my middle age in my 40s, the shit started physically hurting me. And like I said, even getting arrested at Art Basel and coming out of my third indictment, I just started realizing that my life was, I wasn't allowed to leave the country. And, I missed a lot of blessings. And besides that, I started feeling like shit. And
Right.
I'm really fond of feeling happy and healthy. And I was able to get high for a long time and feel like that, but it wore itself out. And it was just time, just one day. And one day I had a moment where I was arguing with somebody, and my heart started bugging out, and it was beyond like a panic attack or an anxiety attack. It felt like a mini stroke, and it just woke my ass up. And I'd been woke from the indictments and stuff like that, as far as like, don't be a fucking drug dealer. But as far as like how I live my actual life, I couldn't pretend anymore. So I went on spiritual journeys. Shout out to Rhyme MSK for pulling me in, and I linked with Shipibo tribe and shamans, and I ended up out in the jungles of Sac Bay, Mexico, and outside of Paris. I've done many different medicine ceremonies, 9 ayahuasca ceremonies, and I've been reprogrammed, and I'm just a functional human being. I'm not indulging and hanging out with bad spirits, and I'm very woke and awake to what I surround myself, what I let in my ears, what I look at, what I talk about. And it's my choice. I don't have to do anything in my life. I've realized how much power I have over every second of my life, and what I let into it in any form, whether I'm snorting it or listening to it, it's up to me. So it just became ever so apparent that I'm in control. And so I'm just in control now. And I think living on a more positive frequency, blessings are able to pour in that way. And when you're living in a low frequency, you're arguing with people, and your thought, even when you're not arguing with them, your mind's still in that place. And
Tom Petty.
It's very petty, but it's just not a good mindset to be in. Thinking about how you're gonna come back on an argument, or you're gonna go beat someone's ass or some shit. It's not it's not high frequency. It's low frequency, and I do not want to be tapped into low frequencies or even be near them. But I've learned to be capable of maintaining my frequency more and more. I still lose it, I've had to go do breathing exercises and quantum sound medicine ceremonies online with Rescue and our friends. Nevertheless, it's just been a good journey, and I've just found different ways and different tools of maintaining happiness. So here I am. I'm happy as fuck.
And God bless for
shout
that.
Out, shout out to White Claw for sponsoring.
Salute, shout out White Claw. Miami's best. Shout out.
And thanks for overnighting these once again, dude. This is really tight. I don't drink a lot, but for Thirsty Thursday, it's what we're doing.
This is, by the way, this is episode 1, Thirsty Thursday. This is Pedro Amos tuning in live and direct with Dr.Daks, dear friend of mine. Pleasure to have him on. Talk to me, Dax, about what you felt, man, when you were shedding these demons. Because visually, you've talked to me about it, and if you're cool with it, but I feel like your description of it was so intense, real, and as many times that you've asked me to go and try it, and all, it's just you were so visually descriptive that I didn't feel comfortable even attempting something like that.
Yeah.
Talk to me what it's like to visually shed.
Well, we don't have a lot of time.
Kind of
we don't have a lot of time today, but if you've ever seen the movie The Exorcism, I would describe it not far from that. Everything happened in The Exorcism except my head spinning off. I mean, I talked in tongues. I've talked in Old Latin. I've chanted. I've had a little girl's voice come from my chest. I've been attacked by demons and shit that people listening to this right now probably can't believe, but I know what I've seen, and I guess this is what they mean by killing your ego. A lot of these things that haunt you and these things that you go through even during ceremonies, they're so powerful and fucking potent. You feel I felt that I've died in ceremonies and came back, and it's probably worse than any coronavirus you can feel going through some of this stuff. And I learned through the shamans guiding me that this was all me fighting myself and my ego, like how dare you step on my shoes, that kind of attitude. Right. It's almost like you feel like that in ayahuasca, like you fight it, you're just fighting this shit, and then you got to stop fighting. You got to submit, because you're not going to win this fight, and I've learned to submit, and I've learned to fucking I just learned to trust the universe. They teach these things in church to just trust, have faith, and I've learned that. I've learned to have faith, and I don't worry about anything, even when things are in my face, scary, even people. I have faith that I'm going to be all right, and I have faith that if someone fucking shoots me in the face, or if I have a heart attack because a girl's yelling at me, that I'm going to be okay. And if I die, if I stop breathing, that's just what was supposed to happen. And I have faith in that. If I have this podcast, that's supposed to happen. It's fine. And no one should cry for me. It's this fucking weird world that we're living in. So I'm just ready for whatever, and I've learned to even accept physical pain and all these things. I get along with insects. I don't kill cockroaches. I don't kill anything. I just, I'm very compassionate now. And, you know, I spent my 13th birthday in a mental hospital for being a sociopath and a manic depressive. So I've come a long way from being a fucking psychotic, dysfunctional motherfucker that sells drugs and does whatever I want. And I'm able to get along with people. I can even have a conversation with you right now, you know, and not be offended by anything. Like everything you asked me before, you know, is there anything you don't want me to talk about? And I said, no, everything is an open book, man. I'm unapologetic about things, even embarrassment. I don't feel embarrassment, jealousy, all these fucked up traits and behaviors that we have. I've learned to accept that everybody has them, but it's how you deal with them and how you project them on other people, or if you do or not. So I try not to project on people, and I try not to linger in these dark places. I try to keep my frequency high. So I have tools, and they're really basic. It just comes down to many different breathing exercises, stretching, water, kale,
and taking care, and taking care of yourself. And shout out White Claw, and taking care of yourself, right? Taking care of yourself in every capacity, mental, physically, like you said, everything from kale to stretching, jogging, and all that good stuff. Yeah, I really love that step. Again, alluding to.
Let's even talk about that. Let's talk about being ready. You know, when you fucking do drugs and get fucked up, you get hungover. And the older you get, the longer these hangovers. And I've woken up at 4 in the afternoon and fucking missed the biggest blessings ever. And I was like, if I had just fucking heard the phone ring. And like, so now I'm kind of like, man, it's part of me being a doctor too. I'm always on call. I'm ready to jump on a plane right now. You know, with my James Ford backpack and fucking, you know, being ready for me now is being healthy, you know, being alert. If someone fucking, even just being on this right now, if I'd been doing fucking cocaine all night, I couldn't jump on this right now. You know, you jump on live. So I'm here, I'm present, and I'm in a good mood. And because I'm fucking thriving and I'm healthy, I can have a detailed, enthusiastic conversation with anybody at any time. And that's where you start winning. And that's what I love.
Absolutely, man. And it's about being ready, right? Everyone's like, oh, you got lucky. Oh, you caught this break. And it's not. You put yourself in a position to be.
Just like an athlete. An athlete fucking trains off the off season. And then they be ready for the season. You know, I'm getting ready for Art Basel right now, bro. That's why when I show up, I'll be doing things. I'll have me a spot to stay. You know, motherfuckers be hitting you up when you're on your way down. I'll be driving down to Art Basel like, oh, man, I could have rode with you. Where you staying? I'm like, you ain't ready. Stay home and get ready for next year, motherfucker, you know? If you live in Miami, it's different. But, you know, for out-of-towners, you got to get ready, man. That shit starts months ahead. Sometimes I get ready for Art Basel while I'm at Art Basel the year before. I'd be thinking about what's going on for the next Art Basel and talking to people down there about that. No, I know we can't do it this year, but next year.
Well, we were in Art Basel last December. We almost missed it, and we were here.
But we almost missed it. I was present, bro. I was at Art Basel. I was present. Shout out the Museum of Graffiti too, man. That was my big deal this year.
That was very cool. Shout out to Museum of Graffiti for sure.
Yeah,
doing really great things down here.
I go regardless, but that was you know, being included even in a small form on that was a big honor, and I was just like, I just love going to Art Basel with a purpose, you know, and that's kind of what that is, you know. Yeah, it's one thing to be at Art Basel, but to be actually doing stuff at Art Basel, that's dreamy, and I never take that for granted.
Hey, Dax, I'm looking at freights and all this again. This is episode 1, Thirsty Thursdays, brought to you by Miami's Best Graffiti. Pedro Amos hosting. Dr.Daks, straight out of Atlanta. We're filming here down in Wynwood. There's one thing, you know, looking at your old flicks, I see a lot of still, you know, obviously it's all about the letters, but I see a lot of color. I've heard you say in the past, Atlanta's not Miami. Atlanta is a more of a gray, a darker city. I like to bring that vibrancy to my city. But you've always been doing that. This is not something new where you started doing patchwork. You've always kind of had this in your murals, in some of your freight cars, freight trains, etc. So when you started with this transition, did you feel an incorporation, like you shed some of the stuff that you were painting earlier and now you're bringing in this kind of new patterns, new colors, new vibe?
Yeah, I mean, I guess colors, I've always been attracted to colors from going and being in like the grocery store line with my mom when you're finally checking out and there's like all the bubble gums and all that shit and the letters on them and all. I was really attracted to that. And I noticed like connections between that stuff and what I was seeing on the MARTA line. So I think I just knew instantly that colorful, I didn't consciously think it, but I just knew that colorful was attractive, at least to me. So, and later on though, I started, you know, going from the hurricane season to South Beach, like I was telling you, in the early 80s, I lived on the Gulf Coast, and my mom would, hurricanes used to hit the Gulf Coast and still do, and we would drive to Miami, going to South Beach. Even when it was abandoned and fucked up, it was still pastel colors and Art Deco. The architecture was all intact, and I knew that shit. And also, I went to Disney World once, and I just knew colors. I relate colors to positivity and happiness. No matter how fucked up things are, if you even put on instead of wearing like a black shirt, you put on a baby blue shirt, it makes you feel a different way. I say that colors are ketchup for your eyes. And so it's like, you can have someone give you someone give you a hamburger with nothing on it, but you put some cheese on it and some ketchup on it. It's got that flavor now, So color is flavor, Shout out to Flavor Savers, the FS.
I was gonna say, shout out Flavor Savers.
Yeah, and I'll say that too. Meeting with Mendez in '94 down there. I linked up and became a Flavor Saver member, and I can go on and on with the roll calls, but Flavor Savers, the FS crew's a bunch of Cubans and Latin guys from the streets of Miami, and having that access to Miami through those guys was fucking tight. And especially because I hustled, like even I would come down there and I'm like, I brought 3,000 X pills, man. It's, and I call Amos is my FS member. So we're not even friends. We didn't grow up together, but we linked up and it felt like we knew each other forever. And you helped me get off all them pills, and I was sitting in limousines and shit. Like we're young, this is just exciting times. But Graffiti did that. These relationships these people I met through Graffiti. There's nobody. You'll meet a lot of people in your life, but nothing quite like some graffiti writers.
Well, I mean, and you're absolutely right. And this was before, let's say, again, the internet and kind of the Instagram. Everyone becoming friends and friendly. But I remember going to New Orleans for the first time in 1998. Did not know Mendez's his cousin Axe. I met him at a
top mob crew.
Yeah, I met him at.
Shout out Ross Terms on this bitch.
What's up, Terms? And he gave me a key to his house. Went to his house. He says, "Man, have a good time. I got to go to work." I mean, I met the guy for 45 minutes. And that's what the crewmate, kind of FS thing was. And shout out Terms FS, right? Terms is on here.
Terms FS, Terms Network crew. But even New Orleans though, that trifecta of like these great southern cities. The South gets slept on in the history of graffiti. I think people, they always think of the obvious cities, but it's even gone beyond. And it might be an insecurity of mine, but like when things go on and I see people, the history and the big ups going to people in other countries and stuff, and I'm like, wow, the South gets kind of slept on. Miami, not so much, especially after Art Basel and stuff. But like when it comes to talking about like important eras and graffiti and people, you don't really hear a lot of mention of these places. And even though myself, I'm an exception to that. I've been given my accolades or my awards or whatever, trophies and hugs, high fives. But a lot of people don't in the South. And, I'm glad that, like, through graffiti, I've been able to make these tight relationships for the 305, 0404. Like, my most cherished relationships go around the world, but mostly in the southern states. Because we all have this, we have this insecurity that we kind of are, like, lesser or underdogish, And I think it's true, but, overcoming that has been fun as well. And I'm kind of glad it was later than earlier because I'm in my 40s and things are starting to pop now with this shit. And, if you got on the boat too early, I might have fizzled out already. So I'm really grateful for fucking everything I'm involved with, being on these conversations, even this one today with Miami's Best Graffiti Guide. And, to come out the South, man, is not easy. But when you do it.
It's not, but it is an honor. It is a pleasure, right? To come out of here and put yourself on the map. And I like being out there kind of later better than sooner, to be honest with you, man. To have that, the originality and the stick-to-itness to be able to ride out and weather all of this storm, learning the politics of this. We were discussing earlier how difficult it is to navigate something that's uncharted, right? And you don't know, this is not, you're a lawyer, you go to school, you become an associate, whatever, partner, judge, retire. We're kind of figuring this all out as we go now, right? And so,
also just being able to put your city on the map. Outkast and a lot of my friends were able to put the city on the map in ways with music and put music on the map here. But art was always, and it still is. The Renaissance is happening now. But
I agree.
Places, Atlanta's not to diss my own city, but this place is fucking late. We're late, and but I'm not sure it's a bad thing. Just kind of like going back to doing ayahuasca ceremonies. It wasn't late. It's just on time. And,
right on time.
Yeah, so I'm just glad I got to experience it before I fucking died. You know what I'm saying? I'm thriving. I'm healthy, and just so much gratitude for everything, man. I'm just grateful at all times right now. you know, can't keep a good motherfucker down, and just be
Well,
good.
listen,
be pure.
and you are good. Listen, I'm really grateful to have you on today, man. We've been chatting for a little over an hour. I have some footage that
And thanks everybody for listening to our nonsense.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, answer some questions, though. Let's answer some questions before we get off.
What's up?
Anybody got a fucking question?
Let me scroll through here and see what's what.
If anybody's got a question, man, we're gonna answer questions for the next 5 minutes, man. Shout out White Claw for the sponsorship.
Shout out
and thank you for overnighting these, man. Because I'm not leaving the house. Even though Atlanta's back to Freaknik, I'm quarantined. I'm fucking quarantined, and I wasn't going out to pick up no alcohol for Thursday. And here,
yes, sir.
FedEx goddamn soda.
I didn't drink all week for today.
Yeah, man. You know, you pull off great things, my friend.
Hey, I can't thank you enough for not only your friendship, but obviously for showing up today. You know, I hold you in the highest regard, man. You're my family, 21 years and counting. And I can't thank you enough for sure, man. You really are one of the GOATs, man. And I appreciate you every day. Like I said, we talk all the time, and everything I say, I mean to you, man. So thank you so much.
And vice versa. And next Thursday would be another Thursday with someone else, I suppose.
Oh, I
yes
don't
or
know
no? Well, let's before we get off, what is this we're doing? Is this a monthly, a quarterly? What is?
Well, listen, we're gonna essentially do this at least bi-monthly, so every other Thursday. But you know what? We might be able to pull it off every month. We're doing a lot of
every Thursday, man.
Yeah, every Thursday. Miami's Best Graffiti Guide is a tour
every Thursday.
Doing tours here in Wynwood as well as Montreal. And so we'd like to stay as active as possible. The tour, obviously, with the way things are going nowadays, the tours and stuff is very slow. But we're pivoting to do some virtual stuff. Nonetheless,
maybe we can have the followers pick the next guest.
We can have the followers pick the next guest. That can be a thing. Yeah. And go ahead and follow and send the message to Miami's Best Graffiti Guide. Go ahead and we'll send you guys some sticker packs.
Yeah, follow me too.
And follow the Dr.Daks.
This is the story of you. What makes you special? Where you come from. This is one of the most exciting stories ever told because it's about you.